My beloved brothers and sisters, every single one of us carries prayers in our hearts. Some are whispered in the darkness of the night, some are cried through tears, some are spoken with hope, and some are buried deep because we feel shy, unworthy, or afraid that they may never be answered. Yet Allah, the most merciful, invites you again and again to speak to Him. He does not say, "Come only when you are perfect." He says, "Call upon me, I will respond to you." When you talk to Allah, the most important thing you can bring is honesty, not perfection, not polished words, not long speeches that sound impressive to others, but a heart that is real and open. Allah does not want you to pretend in front of Him. He already knows what you hide, what you fear, what you regret, and what you desire. Yet He still invites you to speak. That invitation itself is mercy. Many people think dua must sound a certain way. They feel they must copy phrases, use complex words, or speak like scholars. So they hesitate. They delay. They stay silent because they feel their words are not good enough. But Allah is not impressed by vocabulary. He is moved by sincerity. A broken sentence spoken with truth is more beloved to Allah than a perfect speech spoken without heart. Honesty in dua means admitting your weakness. It means saying, "Oh Allah, I am struggling." Instead of pretending you are strong, it means confessing, "Oh Allah, I am lost," instead of acting like you have everything figured out. Some people think admitting weakness makes them less worthy. In reality, it makes them closer. Allah loves when His servant recognizes their dependence on Him. The moment you stop pretending, you start healing. Honesty also means speaking about your pain without shame. Some hearts carry wounds they have never shared with anyone. Smiles hide sadness. Laughter hides exhaustion. But Allah sees through every mask. When you sit alone and pour out your heart to Him, when you tell Him about the tears no one saw and the fears no one heard, that moment is ibadah. That moment is worship. Because you chose Allah as your refuge. Sometimes honesty means admitting your sins, not with despair but with humility. Saying, "Oh Allah, I fell again. I disappointed myself. I know I was wrong." Allah does not turn away from such words. He loves repentance spoken with truth. He loves when you come back without excuses, without blaming others, without justifying wrong. A sincere "Ya Allah, forgive me" can wipe away years of mistakes. Honesty also means being real about your desires. Some people feel shy asking Allah for worldly things. They think it is too small or too selfish. But Allah is Al-Karim, the most generous. Ask Him for everything, even what seems small. Ask Him for peace, for clarity, for love, for strength, for ease. Nothing is too big for Allah and nothing is too small to ask. When you hide your needs, you deprive yourself of Allah's generosity. At the same time, honesty in dua means admitting confusion. Sometimes you don't even know what to ask for. Your heart feels heavy, but your tongue feels empty. In those moments, say exactly that. "Oh Allah, I don't even know what I need, but you know." That is one of the most powerful du'as a servant can make, because it places full trust in Allah's wisdom. Many people lose hope because they think Allah is distant, but the distance is not real. It is created by silence, by pretending, by holding back. The moment you speak honestly, the barrier falls. Allah says He is closer to you than your jugular vein. That closeness is felt when your dua becomes real. Remember this, you do not need to impress Allah, but you do need to be truthful with Him. You do not need to sound strong, you need to be sincere. You do not need long hours, you need presence of heart. Even a few honest words can change your life. When you make honesty your language with Allah, your dua changes. It becomes lighter. It becomes deeper. It becomes a conversation, not a ritual. And over time, you will notice something beautiful. Even before your situation changes, your heart will. Peace will enter. Strength will grow. Trust will increase. So the next time you raise your hands, leave the performance behind. Leave the fear behind. Speak to Allah like a servant who knows their Lord is merciful, listening and near. Because when honesty meets mercy, prayers never go unheard. When you raise your hands in dua, what matters just as much as the words you speak is what your heart believes. Many people ask Allah, but deep inside doubt sits quietly. They say the dua, yet they expect disappointment. They hope, but only halfway. And this hidden doubt weakens the sweetness of dua. Speaking to Allah with certainty is not about seeing the answer immediately. It is about trusting the one you are calling upon, no matter how impossible the situation looks. Certainty begins with knowing who Allah truly is. He is not limited by causes, time or numbers. What overwhelms you does not overwhelm Him. What confuses you is already clear to Him. When Allah opens a door, no one can close it. When He closes a door, no one can force it open. If you truly believe this, your dua will change. You will stop begging with fear and start asking with confidence rooted in faith. Many hearts struggle because they measure Allah's power by their own experiences. They think, this has never happened before, or I've tried everything, or people like me don't get miracles. But Allah is not bound by patterns. He creates solutions where none exist. The sea did not part because it was logical, it parted because Allah willed it. When you make dua, remember that you are speaking to the one who controls the unseen. Certainty does not mean you will not feel fear or sadness. Even the strongest believers feel pain. But certainty means that beneath the fear there is trust. Beneath the tears there is hope. Beneath the uncertainty of the outcome there is confidence in Allah's wisdom. You may cry while making dua, but your heart should still say, Ya Allah, I know you can. One of the greatest mistakes people make is saying, I made dua, but nothing changed. T.S. statement often reveals impatience, not truth. Change does not always come in the form we expect. Sometimes Allah is preparing you before He gives you what you asked for. Sometimes He is removing obstacles you cannot see. Sometimes He is strengthening your heart so that when the answer arrives, you are ready to carry it. Certainty means trusting the process even when you cannot trace it. Certainty also means avoiding negative speech after dua. When you ask Allah for something and then say, it will probably never happen, you weaken your own faith. Words shape the heart. Speak with hope even when you feel tired. Say, Allah knows, Allah is able, Allah will choose what is best. These words are not empty, they are reminders that keep certainty alive. When you make dua, imagine standing before a king who loves you. Not a king who tolerates you, but a king who cares deeply about your pain. Allah is more merciful to you than anyone else could ever be. Would you approach such a king with doubt in His generosity? Would you think He ignores you? When you truly understand Allah's mercy, certainty naturally grows. Sometimes certainty means continuing to make dua even when you feel weak. It means showing up again and again, even when your heart is tired of waiting. That persistence itself is a sign of faith. Every time you return to Allah, you are declaring, I have no one else but you. And Allah never abandons a heart that relies on Him. Certainty does not guarantee the answer will come exactly as you want, but it guarantees peace in the waiting. It transforms dua from a desperate cry into a hopeful conversation. And over time you will realize that trusting Allah was the answer you needed all along. So when you ask Allah, ask with a heart that believes He hears you, He cares for you, and He is capable of all things. Because a dua made with certainty never goes to waste. When you stand before Allah in dua, remember who you are and who He is. You are the servant and He is the creator. You are the one in need and He is the one free of all need. This understanding is the heart of humility, and humility is one of the most powerful keys to having your prayers answered. Many people speak to Allah, but few truly lower themselves before Him, and it is in that lowering that hearts are lifted. Humility does not mean thinking you are worthless. It means recognizing your reality. It means admitting that without Allah, you have nothing, know nothing, and can do nothing. In a world that constantly tells you to rely on yourself, humility reminds you to rely on Allah. When you come to Him aware of your dependence, your dua becomes sincere, and sincerity carries a weight that reaches the heavens. One of the dangers of dua is entitlement. Sometimes people ask Allah as if they are owed something. They say the words, but inside they feel, I deserve this, or after all I've been through, this must happen. This mindset silently damages the spirit of dua. Allah does not respond to demands, He responds to hearts that submit. When you replace entitlement with humility, your dua changes from a transaction into an act of worship. Humility in dua means acknowledging your flaws without losing hope. It means saying, Oh Allah, I am not perfect, but you are most forgiving. Some people stop making dua because they feel too sinful. They think, why would Allah answer me? But this is not humility, this is despair. True humility is knowing you are flawed while still trusting Allah's mercy. It is knowing you fall short yet believing His door is always open. When a servant humbles themselves before Allah, they stop comparing. They stop saying, why was this given to them and not me? They stop measuring their worth by outcomes. Humility frees the heart from jealousy and resentment. It allows you to say, "Oh Allah, I trust your decision, even if I do not understand it." And that level of surrender brings a peace that success alone cannot bring. Humility also appears in the way you ask. You ask gently, respectfully, with awareness. You do not challenge Allah's decree or question His wisdom with arrogance. Instead, you say, "Oh Allah, if this is good for me, grant it to me, and if it is not, turn it away from me and make me content." This is not weakness, this is strength rooted in faith. It shows that you trust Allah more than you trust your own desires. There is something beautiful about a heart that bows even when it is hurting. A person may be broken, confused, or exhausted, yet still say, "Oh Allah, I submit to you." That humility is beloved to Allah. It shows that your relationship with Him is not based on outcomes but on devotion. Such a heart may be tested, but it will never be abandoned. Humility in dua also means being patient with Allah's response. It means not saying, "Why is this taking so long?" in a way that carries complaint. Instead, it means waiting with trust, knowing that Allah's delay is not neglect. Often Allah delays because He loves the sound of His servant calling upon Him. He loves the closeness created through repeated dua. And that closeness is sometimes more valuable than the answer itself. When humility enters your dua, arrogance leaves your heart. You stop trying to control everything. You stop carrying the burden alone. You place it where it belongs with Allah. And in doing so, you find relief even before the situation changes. So when you raise your hands, do not come as someone who is owed. Come as someone who needs. Come as someone who knows that Allah owes you nothing, yet gives you everything. Because a humble heart is never turned away, and a servant who lowers themselves for Allah will always be raised by Him. One of the greatest tests in making dua is not whether you know how to ask, but whether you know how to wait. Many hearts break not because Allah did not hear them, but because the answer did not come when they expected it. In a world of instant result, waiting feels like rejection. But with Allah, waiting is often part of the mercy. People sometimes think that if a dua was accepted, the answer would come immediately. When it does not, they assume they were ignored. This assumption slowly drains hope. Yet Allah's wisdom operates beyond our sense of time. What feels delayed to you may be perfectly timed by Him. If the answer came too early, it might harm you. If it came too late, you might not be able to handle it. Allah gives when the moment is right, not when impatience demands it. Patience in dua is not passive. It is active trust. It means continuing to believe even when you see no signs. It means making dua with the same hope on the 100th day as you did on the first. This kind of patience strengthens the heart. It teaches you reliance, endurance, and faith. Without patience, dua becomes conditional. With patience, dua becomes devotion. Some people stop making dua because they are tired of waiting. They say, "I asked for so long, nothing changed." But often, what changed was invisible. Allah may have protected you from harm you never knew existed. He may have softened your heart. He may have redirected your life in a way that saved you later. Not every answer is loud. Some answers are quiet, and patience is what allows you to recognize them. Patience also protects you from despair. Despair whispers that Allah has forgotten you. Patience responds by saying Allah never forgets. Despair tells you to give up. Patience tells you to keep going. And between these two voices, your faith is shaped. Every moment you choose patience over despair, you grow closer to Allah, even if your situation remains the same. Waiting on Allah does not mean doing nothing. It means continuing to strive while trusting the outcome to Him. Make dua, take the means, and then leave the result with Allah. Impatience tries to control the outcome. Patience surrenders it. And surrender brings peace. When you stop forcing the answer, your heart becomes lighter. Sometimes Allah delays the answer because He wants to hear your voice again and again. Your repeated dua is not annoying to Him. It is beloved. Each time you call upon Him, you are engaging in worship. Even if the answer does not come in the form you expect, the reward for your patience and persistence is already being written. Patience in dua also teaches you gratitude. When you wait, you begin to notice the blessings you already have. You realize that Allah has been giving you all along, just not always what you asked for. This awareness softens frustration and replaces it with appreciation. And gratitude itself becomes a form of acceptance. The most difficult kind of patience is when Allah's answer is different from what you wanted. When the door you begged for remains closed and another door opens instead. At that moment, Patience means trusting Allah's choice over your own desire. It means believing that Allah sees what you cannot see. This trust is not easy, but it is transformative. It shifts your heart from resistance to peace. In the end, patience is not about time, it is about trust. It is believing that Allah's silence is not absence, and His delay is not denial. When you wait with faith, you are not losing time, you are gaining closeness. And when the answer finally comes, you will realize that every moment of waiting shaped you into someone stronger, calmer, and more connected to Allah. So do not rush Allah's response. Stay patient, stay hopeful, and stay connected. Because what Allah has written for you will reach you, even if the whole world stands in the way. Many people only turn to Allah when life becomes unbearable. When the doors close, when the heart breaks, when there is no one left to call, then hands rise in dua. There is nothing wrong with this, because Allah loves when His servant returns to Him in hardship. But the real power of dua is discovered when you speak to Allah not only in pain but also in peace. Consistency in dua is what transforms a momentary connection into a lifelong relationship. When you talk to Allah only during difficulties, dua begins to feel like an emergency exit rather than a source of closeness. But when you speak to Him regularly, even when things are going well, dua becomes a place of comfort, gratitude, and stability. It reminds your heart that Allah is not just the one you run to when everything falls apart, but the one you walk with every day. Consistency builds awareness of Allah in your life. When you regularly speak to Him, you begin to see His presence in small details. You notice how He protects you in ways you never asked for. You recognize blessings you once overlooked. This awareness softens the heart and strengthens faith. A heart that remembers Allah often is less shaken when trials arrive. Some people feel distant from Allah because they have not spoken to Him in a long time. Then when hardship strikes, making dua feels awkward and heavy. Consistency removes that distance. It keeps the door open. When dua is a habit, turning to Allah feels natural, not forced. Just as regular conversation strengthens human relationships, regular dua strengthens your relationship with Allah. Consistent dua does not mean long duras every time. Sometimes it is a few sincere words whispered while walking. Sometimes it is a quiet conversation before sleep. Sometimes it is a simple, Ya Allah, help me, spoken from the heart. Allah does not measure dua by its length, but by its sincerity and regularity. Even small, frequent duas carry immense value. When you make dua consistently, you stop tying your connection with Allah to outcomes. You no longer speak to Him only to get something. You speak to Him because you love speaking to Him. This is a sign of spiritual maturity. It shows that your faith is not conditional. You trust Allah in ease as much as you trust Him in hardship. Consistency also protects you from arrogance during good times. When things are going well, it is easy to forget Allah and believe you are in control. Regular dua keeps you grounded. It reminds you that every blessing comes from Allah. It keeps gratitude alive and prevents the heart from becoming hard or ungrateful. A consistent habit of dua also builds resilience. When you regularly speak to Allah, your heart becomes trained to return to Him. So when a test arrives, you do not panic as easily. You already know where to go. You already know who to speak to. This familiarity brings calm even in chaos. Sometimes people say, I don't feel motivated to make dua. But consistency is not about motivation, it is about commitment. Even on days when you feel low, tired, or distracted, showing up matters. These moments of effort are often the most beloved to Allah because they show sincerity beyond emotion. Over time, consistent dua changes you. Your priorities shift. Your reactions soften. Your trust deepens. You may notice that your problems do not disappear instantly, but your ability to handle them improves. This is one of the greatest answers to dua, a stronger heart. Allah loves the servant who keeps returning again and again. Not because Allah needs your words, but because you need His presence. When dua becomes part of your daily life, you are never truly alone. Even in silence, your heart feels supported. So do not wait for life to break you before you speak to Allah. Talk to Him when you wake up. Talk to Him when you smile. Talk to Him when you succeed. Let dua be your constant companion, not your last resort. Because a heart that stays connected to Allah consistently will never feel abandoned. no matter what it faces on. Of the most beautiful and often forgotten elements of dua is gratitude. Many people rush straight into asking, carrying long lists of needs, worries, and desires. While asking is encouraged, beginning with gratitude transforms the entire conversation with Allah. It softens the heart, humbles the soul, and opens the door to blessings in ways we may not immediately notice. Gratitude is not just good manner. In dua, it is a powerful form of worship. When you begin by thanking Allah, you remind yourself of how much He has already given you. Life may not be perfect, but it is never empty of blessings. The ability to breathe, to think, to feel, to hope, to call upon Allah at all, these are gifts. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. And when the heart recognizes blessings, it becomes calmer, more hopeful, and more trusting. Starting dua with gratitude also changes the tone of your request. Instead of sounding desperate or overwhelmed, your words become grounded in faith. You are no longer asking from a place of panic, but from a place of trust. You are saying, "Oh Allah, you have taken care of me before, and I believe you will take care of me again." This mindset strengthens certainty and reduces anxiety. Gratitude in dua also protects you from bitterness. When pain lasts long, the heart can become heavy and resentful. But gratitude reminds you that Allah's mercy has never stopped flowing, even during hardship. Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as lessons, protection, or redirection. When you thank Allah even in difficulty, you are not denying your pain, you are choosing trust over complaint. Many people think gratitude is only for good times, but true gratitude exists in every state. Thank Allah for the test that pushed you closer to Him. Thank Allah for the delay that saved you from harm. Thank Allah for unanswered du'as that protected your heart. When you begin to see life through this lens, dua becomes richer and deeper. Gratitude also increases blessings. Allah promises that when you are grateful, He will give you more. More does not always mean material things. It often means peace, clarity, patience, and strength. These are blessings that make even difficult situations easier to carry. A grateful heart is a resilient heart. Beginning dua with gratitude teaches humility. It reminds you that everything you have is from Allah, not solely from your own effort. This realization prevents pride and keeps the heart grounded. When you acknowledge Allah's favors, you recognize your dependence on Him, and this dependence draws you closer. Gratitude in dua does not require perfect circumstances. You can thank Allah even when tears are in your eyes. You can say, "Oh Allah, I don't understand this, but I still thank you." This level of gratitude is powerful because it comes from faith, not comfort. It shows that your relationship with Allah is not based on conditions, but on trust. When you consistently begin dua with gratitude, you may notice a change in your outlook. You become less focused on what others have. You become more content with Allah's plan. Comparison fades and acceptance grows. This inner peace is itself an answered dua. Gratitude also keeps hope alive. When you remember Allah's past favors, you gain confidence in His future mercy. You realize that Allah has never abandoned you, Eve, in your weakest moments. This realization strengthens your connection to Him and renews your motivation to keep asking. In the end, gratitude is not just the beginning of dua, it is a way of life. A heart that is thankful finds Allah everywhere. And when you approach Allah with a grateful heart before asking for more, you are already surrounded by His mercy when you make dua. It is natural to imagine a specific outcome. You picture how things should unfold, when relief should arrive, and what form the answer should take. But one of the deepest levels of faith is accepting that Allah answers in the way that is best, not always in the way you expect. This understanding changes how you experience dua and how you experience life itself. Many people think an answered prayer means receiving exactly what they asked for. When that does not happen, they feel disappointed or even abandoned. But Allah's response is never careless. He sees what you cannot see. He knows the future, the consequences, and the hidden effects of every outcome. What you desire may bring temporary happiness but long-term harm. What you fear may actually carry growth and protection. Allah's answer is guided by perfect knowledge and mercy. Sometimes Allah gives you exactly what you asked for, and your heart feels light with gratitude. Sometimes He gives you something better than what you asked for, something you never even considered. And sometimes He withholds what you asked for entirely, because keeping it away from you is itself an act of mercy. Accepting this truth requires trust, and trust brings peace. One of the hardest moments in faith is when Allah's answer is not this. A door remains closed despite constant dua. A path you hoped for does not open. In those moments it is easy to feel rejected. But rejection from Allah does not exist. What exists is redirection. Allah does not take something away unless He intends to replace it with something better, whether in this life or the next. Acceptance does not mean you stop feeling pain. It does not mean disappointment disappears instantly. It means you choose to believe that Allah's choice is wiser than your desire. It means you say, "Oh Allah, I trust you, even though this hurts." That level of surrender is not weakness, it is strength born from faith. Sometimes Allah answers dua by changing you instead of changing the situation. You ask for ease, and Allah gives you patience. You ask for removal of pain, and Allah gives you strength to endure. You ask for success, and Allah gives you resilience after failure. These answers are often overlooked, but they are among the greatest gifts. A transformed heart can survive circumstances that once felt unbearable. Accepting Allah's answer also protects you from bitterness. When you believe that Allah always chooses what is best, resentment fades. You stop replaying what-if scenarios. You stop comparing your journey to others. You begin to see life as a personal conversation between you and Allah, tailored specifically for your growth. This acceptance deepens your relationship with Allah. You no longer approach dua as a transaction, where faith depends on receiving what you want. You approach it as an act of trust, knowing that Allah hears you and will respond with wisdom. This shift brings emotional stability. Your faith no longer rises and falls with outcomes, it remains steady. There are times when the wisdom behind Allah's answer becomes clear years later. What once felt like a loss reveals itself as protection. What once felt like delay turns out to be perfect timing. And sometimes the wisdom remains hidden until the day you stand before Allah and realize that every unanswered dua was stored as reward. On that day, you will wish that none of your du'as had been answered in the world. Accepting Allah's answer does not mean you stop asking. Continue to make dua, continue to hope, continue to trust. But release the need to control how and when the answer arrives. Place that control where it belongs, with Allah. When your heart reaches this level of acceptance, dua becomes lighter, fear decreases, peace increases. You realize that as long as Allah is choosing for you, you can and never truly lose. So trust Allah's response, whatever form it takes, because the one who hears your dua loves you more than you love yourself. And every answer He gives is wrapped in mercy, even when it doesn't look that way at first.